All right, we want to turn now back to politics. Governor Mike Huckabee was on the stage the other night during that epic CNBC debate. He joins us now. Governor, that was one of the most compelling things I've ever seen on television. I could not turn away. And since we know you, I kept thinking, I wonder what Governor Huckabee is thinking right now. What were you thinking?
Well, I was thinking how frustrating it was to be told that we were going to be talking about the economy, about monetary policy, all economic issues. And we thought that was going to be the case because it's CNBC. That's their wheelhouse. We also were told there was going to be algorithms that would be very carefully monitored to make sure that every candidate had an equal amount of time and it would be balanced. Well, those two things both didn't happen. And it was a complete disaster. And I think CNBC utterly embarrassed themselves in the manner in which they conducted that debate. They went after us in a way that they never go after Democrats. And I do believe this. It united Republican candidates on that stage. So maybe there was a benefit to it after all.
Well, and the RNC has now pulled out of the NBC debate. And we were just talking about this a second ago, which was the letter and the agreement between the GOP and CNBC. We're supposed to be talking about the economy, which was in CNBC's wheelhouse. And that opening question was even discussed ahead of time. It was supposed to be open-ended. It was supposed to be talking about freedom or capitalism or the economy. Instead, you got a question about your weaknesses. So did the RNC do the right thing by canceling this next debate?
He absolutely did. I mean, if there's no accountability and no one gets held responsible for just lying to us and breaking a commitment, then they'll keep lying to us and breaking commitments. I'm going to be very clear. I don't think anybody on that stage expects softball questions. Heck, we're running for president. Throw your best shot. Ask the toughest questions you have. I go on a Sunday show. I expect there are going to be tough questions. Right. Hey, I go on Fox and Friends. I expect you guys are going to ask me tough questions. You're going to make me stand up and account for the things that I've said or done. That's perfectly fair. But don't ask me what I think about the moral character of another candidate, because it's an irrelevant question to ask me, and it is taking away from the substantive issues that really do affect people. I talked about yesterday in Iowa, Kathleen, who cleans our building and our headquarters. She's working 15 hours a day. I want to talk about her. I want to talk about why somebody has to work 15 hours a day cleaning buildings in order to make a living. That's what we need to be discussing.
Yes.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about substantive issues like bringing jobs back to America and decreasing the national debt and things like that. Also, the health care cost crisis was something that was supposed to be addressed. It was some, but you have a plan, you say, that can really fix this issue, and that's attack diseases. Tell us about your plan.
Well, Anna, the problem is 85% of Medicare costs are spent toward chronic diseases. We live longer, but we live in a very unhealthy way. Now, here's a shocking figure. 85% of a person's lifetime health care costs are spent in their last 18 months of life. So what we have is an overwhelming cost factor that is driven by chronic disease. What I say is that the next president, and I hope that's me, should do the same thing John Kennedy did in declaring that we're going to go to the moon and come back in a decade. We need to say that within a decade, we're going to find a cure to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, the four big cost drivers. If we do that, we're going to change not only our families' lives, because those diseases are so devastating, we will totally change the economy both of Medicare, but frankly, the economy of the country, since we're going to be spending trillions of dollars if we continue the same thing, which is to treat disease at the catastrophic level rather than to prevent it or cure it, which is the only way to have cost control.
I thought that was the most interesting line in the entire debate. If you just solved one of those diseases, you would fix the balance. I want to get to foreign policy because I know you're interested in it. You spent a lot of time in the Middle East. The president has committed about 50 special operators on the ground in Syria, but he has given no hint of what the end game is. What's the strategy here? Who do you believe ought to be running Syria? Who ought to be the president of Syria when all of this is done?
Well, I'm not sure that we have anybody that's really capable of doing a decent job. Assad is a dictator, but I'll be honest with you, under Assad, things were much more stable, and there was much less volatility, not just in Syria, but in all the Middle East. And I don't know that we have anybody to go in there and replace him right now. I thought Roger Simon had the best tweet He said President Obama commits ground forces to Syria, but who are they going to fight with? I mean, it just shows a complete lack of clarity. We don't know. We spent $500 million to train some rebels, and we ended up training 4 people for $500 million. This policy from this president, because he doesn't know who our enemies really are, and he can't identify our friends either. He treats Israel like an enemy. He treats Iran like a friend. This is not the way that you work in the Middle East when you can't distinguish the good versus the bad. I've often said this president couldn't watch a Western from the 50s and tell you who the good guys were.
And we just have a few seconds left, Governor. How do you distinguish, though? I mean, what forces are supporting ISIS? What forces are not supporting ISIS? Who's with Assad? Who's not? How would you, as president, handle that?
Well, what you have to do is realize it's not just ISIS. There's a bigger threat. It's all of radical Islam. That includes Iran, but it also includes Boko Haram. It includes all these forces that still believe we ought to be pushed back to the 7th century. We need to see them all as enemies. We need to see them all as threats. And we need to take on the ones that are threatening us most, which right now may be ISIS. But we haven't had a concentrated effort to bust their supply lines with A-10 Warthog fighters that would go over, or those planes that could bust their supply capacity. And until we start doing that aggressively, we're not going to win this battle.
All right, Governor, we're celebrating Halloween on the show, obviously. Happy Halloween to you. How are you spending it today?
So here's your softball question. How are you?
Yeah, I'll be going to a trunk or treat event in Jefferson, Iowa tonight, and wishing somehow I was with my 5 grandkids trick-or-treating with them back in Arkansas. But I'm sure I'm going to get lots of pictures of their costumes. One of my grandsons is going to be dressed up as a monkey, and his little brother will be a banana. So that's going to be fun to see those photos.
Outstanding.
Yeah,
nice
thank goodness for
non-political
FaceTime.
costumes. Fantastic. Great to see you, Governor, this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Governor.
Thanks.